Do you have to choose between having a relationship and having a career? Most people don't have a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and it's only not healthy yet because we don't normally start out healthy. As much as everyone wishes that they could be the best version of themselves for someone else, it's normally not the case. Like, you kind of bring a lot of BS with you.
And you're normally not even the best version of yourself for yourself.
Right.
Like, if you can't even do that for yourself, you can't do it for somebody else. All right, the woman herself, Songs by Cole. Welcome to episode 1. I am
Thank you.
honored to have you as my first guest.
I'm honored to be your first guest.
Cool. It just makes sense. You know, you've been supporting me throughout this whole process when I started Enter the Void almost a year ago, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is crazy. What the heck?
It's flown by. So it's been almost a year since I started my first podcast, and you were so supportive of it, and just, yeah, I really appreciate all of the times that you've been there for me and given me a second opinion and helped me with design stuff and all sorts of stuff. So
Of course.
it means the world, and this is a perfect first guest situation for this new podcast where we question everything.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Today's topic is relationships and career. Specifically, do you have to choose between the two? And I know that this is something that's really relevant to both of us, because for those listening and watching who don't know, we're married.
Yes.
So, yeah, we know what it's like to be creative people that are pursuing a career and also a relationship together. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of wild. So I think it makes sense to start from the beginning, you know, where we came from and how everything happened. Mainly because it's helpful for other people to understand that they're not alone, and that, you know, crazy things can happen and lead to a good relationship. But also because it's entertaining, and I think the way that we started was very interesting. So it'll be good for us to
Interesting is one word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have drinks here, so these are good for your voice. So we can take a sip.
I don't know what to expect with this flavor. Like, what is it?
It's honey lemon water with ginger and turmeric.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting.
Also, we have some crystals here, so if you want something to fidget with, I know I'm a fidgeter, so
Okay.
I'm going to take the white one because I'm feeling, I don't know, it's just like my white
It matches
shirt.
your outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
man.
I guess this one kind of matches my outfit.
There you go.
So.
Yeah, it's dark. We're both wearing black, which happens a lot. We end up matching quite a bit.
We do match a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious from your perspective, if we go back to the beginning of our relationship and just the things that we came from, what do you think is important to bring up? And what do you think is relevant to this topic of relationships and career, and if you can make them work together, if you have to choose?
Yeah, well, I think at the start of our relationship, or even just our friendship, I think we were in very different places, career-wise.
That's very true.
And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is, I think, important to note because we are, like, now, where we're at currently, we are very much in the same place, on the same page. But then, like, we really weren't.
What was different?
Well, I feel like from a really young age, I kind of knew what I wanted to do with my life and, like, what I wanted to do for a career. And so I was just kind of already going at it.
Yeah.
And
Because you fell into music at what, like 11 is when you started actually like writing with the piano and stuff?
yeah, and I'm really fortunate that I found that out so young, because I know that with most people, they don't really figure out what their thing is until a lot later in life. And so it was and so it's kind of a rare thing to happen, like for you to figure out what you want to do career-wise when you're so young.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like I was kind of in that place, and then you were kind of experimenting with a lot of different things, and like you didn't really know what you wanted to do. And yeah, I don't want to talk for you,
Yeah.
but
Well, no, it's good. It's good to like hear your perspective. And like full disclosure, obviously we've been married almost 4 years now, and we've talked about nearly everything. But that's what I'm excited for with this episode, is for us to just give each other a different perspective and really break down this question. But you're right. I was kind of all over the place, and I did know what I wanted. I knew that I wanted financial freedom. I knew that I wanted to help people, and I knew that I wanted to experience the fullness of this life, because I don't know if there's anything after this or not. I'd like to think there is, but that's always been in the back of my mind of like, there are hundreds of different countries on this earth, all with different geography and cultures. And like, I don't want to just live in the same small town my whole life and wither away.
yeah.
So I've always known what I wanted in that sense, but knowing how to get there and like what vehicle to take.
Yeah.
Because like different cars have different functions, right? Like some vehicles are meant for off-road, some are meant for the quickest 0 to 60. And like knowing what direction you're in, like your destination, is so important.
Yeah.
But you also have to take the right vehicle to get there. And I was always afraid of choosing the wrong one. And I think that unfortunately...
You get on like a Lime scooter.
Yeah. I'm like, I'll see you guys in a very long time. And then I get to the end and it's like $1 million for the bill because they're so freaking expensive.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
This episode is not sponsored by Lime.
Absolutely not. In fact, it's the opposite. We reverse endorse Lime currently. Lime, if you want to change that, just let me know.
Yeah. The email is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I'm not going to disclose my email. It's, yeah.
Just kidding.
So yeah, I think unfortunately, like at the beginning of our relationship, you got to experience the negative side of that, of me like not having the clarity on how I was going to do what I wanted to do. Obviously, I was experiencing the brunt of that too for a long time, because it sucks and it's also embarrassing to like try a bunch of different things and look like a failure every single time. But I'm aware that it was difficult, for you to be in this place where you had that clarity and you also had been very consistent with your music career for a very long time. Like you never swayed from it. And I couldn't say the same for myself. And it was difficult. I'm curious what kind of strain you feel that put on our relationship, or what challenges that brought in, like specifically career-wise with where we were at and how we were handling it.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like we got to experience kind of like the complete opposite sides of this, like, I don't want to call it an issue, but like a challenge.
Yeah.
So like you were experiencing like not knowing what you want to do, or like how you want to go about things, and feeling like you were weighing me down. And then my side of it was like, I already knew what I wanted to do, but I was kind of struggling with essentially what the question of this episode is, which is, can you have love and a career? Because, like, I don't know. I feel like there were a lot of times that I'm a very independent person, but kind of to a fault sometimes, I'm so independent that sometimes I'm selfish in a way,
Yeah.
or I don't allow others to help. And so I think that I don't know. I feel like we experience the opposite sides of the spectrum
Yeah, like
with this.
I was maybe because of my lack of clarity, I was relying too much on like external things, including you, for that sense of clarity and direction. And then for you, like you weren't letting me in enough because you
Yeah.
already had the clarity and like you already knew where you wanted to go. And so it kind of like pushed me out of the equation a little bit.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I can see that like it was difficult for both of us. And obviously like the career choices, like for me, I took a very different method than you did. And we're two different personality types. We're two different people. So there's the career stuff, but obviously in a relationship, it's not just like your relationship with your spouse or with your partner and your careers. There are other aspects involved. And I know that for both of us, a huge component of our relationship was our religion, which has now
Yeah.
shifted into our spirituality. But I I know that this is like a very deep wound for both of us. And I think that it's important for people that are going through the same thing to see that there's a way out.
Yeah, definitely.
So without the entire episode turning into that, because we could talk for literal days straight with no sleep
Yeah.
about specifically our religious journey. I'm curious about how that impacted our relationship, and maybe even before we were technically together, maybe even when we were just friends or when we just met.
Yeah, well, the first thing that came to mind was honestly, so in our religion, and in I feel like a lot of religions, there's a huge emphasis on women being mothers and homemakers,
Yeah.
and not so much of a focus on career.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of frowned upon. And
It won't
so
say that now, but like it
right.
still is
And
frowned upon.
so growing up, I already felt kind of out of place with other girls,
Yeah.
because, and to be clear, I do not look down on motherhood at all, and like I think that being like a homemaker, I think that's beautiful, and like I think that if your dream in life is to be a mother, like there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's amazing. But I did like, I don't know, like I've always been very like entrepreneurial and like career oriented, and so that's been my dream in life, is to like succeed in that area. And so all that to say that I I already felt really out of place with that.
Yeah. Like you just couldn't connect as much with other girls your
Yes.
age.
Yeah, and I also felt like it was something that about me that was kind of bad, or like not something that I needed to change about myself.
Almost like your desire for a career first over like instantly jumping into motherhood was kind of made you unworthy in a way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know, like I think that, so yeah, like before we started dating, I kind of had that like dissonance in my mind of like, oh, I need to be a wife, I need to be a homemaker, I need to like be ready to be a mother. But that was just like not me.
Yeah.
Like that's not what I was wanting right away, at least. And so
I'm totally curious because I just now realized something. Yeah, you had this pressure from church to like take a certain path with your life.
Yes.
And then you had your intrinsic desire to pursue your career. And so for those that don't know, like we both grew up Mormon and
In the LDS church.
yeah.
But
And I left when I was 16. I separated myself from the church. And when we say the church, we mean the LDS church because that's the church. So I separated myself from the church when I was 16. And so when we met, when I was 18 and you were 16,
yeah.
I was not a part of that anymore. And although we were just friends for like a year and a half after we had met, do you feel like there was a part of you that felt safe with me in the sense that you knew that I wasn't expecting you to immediately become a mom, whereas like most Mormon boys would be expecting that of you?
I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that definitely was a thing.
We just
Because
unlocked a new like thing.
yeah, I've never really like thought about that, but I think that's totally true. Like, especially because like the person that I had like dated before you was like in the church.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the future that I had always envisioned with him was not actually what I really wanted.
Yeah.
Like, the future that I envisioned with him was being, like, this perfect Mormon girl and, like, getting married in the temple and, like, wearing, like, the modest, like, midi maxi dresses and, like, probably, like, living in Utah or, like something like that. And that's just, like, I mean, look at me. Does it look like that's what I want in life?
Yeah.
Come on.
You've
Come on.
definitely like stepped further into yourself and what you want. Yeah, be for real, girl.
Yeah, so, but with you, I was like, wait. Like, I don't have to be that if I don't want to. And, like, there are guys out there that are going to be supportive of that.
Yeah. Well, and you also knew by the time we became best friends that I hated Utah.
Yeah.
So that was also out of the picture, which is good.
Yeah, and you also just, like we would have spiritual conversations all the time. And I just, like, thought your perspective was so cool. And, like, it was so, like, inspiring to hear because it was just so clear to me that you were such a free thinker. And, like, I had always felt that way growing up, that, like, I was kind of, like, a free thinker. But it's, like, hard to be that whenever you're in a high demand religion.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit more niche to take the approach of, like, or to shine a light on, yes, we're like a very entrepreneurial couple that's very like creative and pursuing our own careers, which is kind of a rare thing. Like typically you see people get together after they get famous or something like that.
Yeah.
It seems to be
It's
more
rare that they are together, they like come up together.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we don't know everything that's going to happen, but like that's our goal and manifesting it right now live. Like that's the goal, right? Because it provides us and the people around us freedom and we're helping other people in the process. So so there's that, but like I'm curious with the it's very rare that I lose my train of thought, but I actually just like the train totally went in a tunnel and like no, it went in a tunnel and it's gone. Oh. Like there's no other end of the tunnel.
Oh, okay.
I don't see a light at the end at the moment.
Oh my gosh.
So okay. Rest in peace to my brain. So before you were talking about let me take a drink.
Yeah, maybe it will rinse the gunk.
Rinse the gunk from our mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were talking about how you weren't connecting with other people your age, and then there was that dynamic of relationships and how basically most of your options, and this is also typical of religions, is you kind of got to stick together. If you marry
Yes.
outside of the religion, it's always a problem to friends and family and leaders and whatever.
Yeah.
And with the LDS
It's
church,
not smart to do.
yeah, exactly.
Like you can, but you should probably avoid it at all costs.
And then other churches are like straight up, like, don't marry outside of the church. And that's how the LDS church is. And so I can see, and that's very interesting how, like, with me, I wasn't in the church. And although this is maybe a different part of our story that we can explore at a later date, but like, I know that you wanted me to come back to the church, and I started to because I loved you. But yeah, like, I appreciate what you said about seeing that I was a free thinker, and I appreciated that about you too. Like, that's, I think, why we became such good friends so fast, is because unlike most other Mormon kids that I was around at 18 and even before that, like, you were very open-minded and willing to have a conversation, and you didn't combat everything I said with like a scripture that you had memorized. Like, the things that came out of your mouth were straight from your own mind.
Yeah, like I didn't feel threatened by like your opposing beliefs.
Yeah. And I felt that way. And that was actually really surprising to me, because when we were just friends and when we had just met, I never could have imagined this.
Yeah, I mean,
Never. Like, this is the biggest surprise of the
no
century.
one saw it coming.
No, they totally didn't. And we didn't. And it's because of that, like, if you're in the church, you're in it, and if you're out, you're out. But it was surprising to me that there was some like free thought, and I was like, oh, this is like really cool and really attractive. And so, yeah. So without getting too like in the weeds about our exodus from the LDS church, the Mormon church,
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about individuality. Like, a big thing for me and my message with social media is you cannot find fulfillment in life if you don't truly understand who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't have a clear sense of identity, then you're going nowhere. And it's going to be miserable. And we both know what that feels like. We know what it feels like to have little pieces of our identity that we're aware of, right? So you thought I was a free thinker. Like, that's the thing that I'm capitalizing on now. Like, that's my career, is like me having an open mind and thinking freely.
Yeah.
Like, but I didn't have that clarity. That was just a tiny little unexplored, unappreciated piece of my identity. So I'm curious how growing up in the church and having that strip your identity and your individuality, because you're not able to think for yourself.
Yeah. And there's very much like a mold created for you.
Yes. And that was that, like, stay-at-home mom kind of mold, which is
Yes.
fine if that's what you want to do, but you didn't want to.
Yeah.
So how did that impact your career and our relationship as we were entering marriage together and entering a partnership? Like, what was that process like of having almost no identity before and then having to discover that for yourself, and that dynamic where we were both doing that at the same time?
I honestly feel like the only thing that gave me identity outside of the church was my music. And that was my actual identity. Like, that was actually me. And so I'm super grateful for that. And I feel like my music and like writing music, it kind of taught me how to listen to myself. Because anytime I would write, like, where does it come from? It comes from inspiration. And inspiration comes from within yourself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm super grateful that I had my music to really teach me how to listen to my intuition and trust myself as well. And so,
Why do you think that's important with a career and a relationship, for you to be really in tune with who you are and your intuition?
because I think you know yourself the best. Like, you know yourself better than anyone else. And interestingly enough, I feel like bad organizations, like some churches, or some groups in society, like, they kind of attack that. They kind of like, they try to tear down your trust in yourself because that's so important.
You can't be controlled if you trust yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because if something is happening, the inside you're going, oh, this feels really wrong. Like, there's something off about this. If you ignore that, like, you're going to get yourself into a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Whereas if you listen to that feeling and realize, like, oh, I should probably, like, get out of this. Like, I don't know. You're, like, protecting yourself. Sorry, that didn't really, like, answer the question that you asked.
But it kind of does, because I think that it affects your career and like your relationship with external things when you're in touch with yourself, but it does in a relationship too, right? If you have somebody that doesn't know who they are, like, that can affect a relationship really poorly,
Yes.
because they're looking to that other person to fill some sort of void and give them purpose. That's where dependency comes from.
Yeah, and that is a recipe for disaster.
Yes. So regardless of where you come from as a couple, and your childhoods and things like that, whether it's a religious background or a non-religious background, or a family that values traditional education or not, a family that does sports or not, like, there's a lot of different backgrounds that you can have.
Yeah.
But regardless of all of that, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you guys are both wanting to do big things, and I put that in quotations because things are big on a different scale to different people.
Yeah.
But if you're pursuing lofty careers together, what does that process look like to discover yourself, especially when you're a younger couple? Because we're in our 20s right now, which is a very transformative time, and it's a time where most people outside of the church are basically just like drinking and hoeing around and traveling maybe and working, and like, that's it. Like, that's what they're doing, and they're trying to figure themselves out. And so are we, just in a different way. So if you want to have a healthy relationship with somebody, and if you do want to choose both, where you want a career and you want a partnership with somebody, what does that process look like? Like, what does it look like for us, but also for other people, to really discover who you are together and not grow apart?
Yeah. I think that giving each other space is important. And kind of knowing your place. Because it can be really easy to be control freaks over each other, or steal the spotlight. Yeah, there's...
And share a spotlight too much.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
that's
goes back
true
to the
too.
whole giving each other space thing. But
Yeah, I think that's just like a really important thing, to give each other space.
what does that allow you to do as a couple whenever you have space?
Well, it allows you to really work on yourself and see what things you need to improve on. space is also good because it helps you miss each other and desire to be around each other more.
Yeah.
Because whenever you're constantly around each other, like you turn into roommates.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when you do a sleepover with your best friend, but it's like
For a
3
week.
days in a row, and you're like,
start getting
why are
annoyed
we
with them.
friends? I kind of want to murder you right now because you suck.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's really important to, also with giving each other space, like, it's really important to maintain individuality.
Yeah.
Like, have your own activities that you go do. So, like, for you, you really like volleyball.
Yeah.
I'm not really a big fan of sports. But for you, like, that's a great outlet for you. And that's also, like, an individual thing of yours. And so for you to go out and play volleyball every Thursday night or whatever, and me to stay home and do an individual activity of my own, like, that's really healthy.
Yeah.
For us to do.
Or for you to go out with a girlfriend and me
Yeah.
to stay home and edit videos or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I feel like when people get married, there's the whole thing about, like, becoming one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that people take that too far. Like, the whole becoming one thing. Like, they become one so much to the point of, like, literally not having any sense of identity outside of their relationship.
Yeah, like
and,
if you were to separate them, it'd be like a fish out of water.
Yes, and that is really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
'Cause like you said, like, it makes you really dependent on each other in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And also there's a common phrase that people use of, like, oh, you complete me, or, like, you're my missing half.
Mm-hmm. Like they're coming
And
50-50.
And, like, that, it sounds cute, but really we kind of need to do away with that.
Yeah. We've never really like done that, I don't think. Like you're my other half or whatever.
Yeah, just because I, like, to view yourself as someone, like, that, like, you need someone else for you to be, like, a whole person is just, like, ugh.
It kind of
That's
comes
not
from
good.
it kind of comes from some place in society, whether it's
Yeah.
your family or it's your church or it's your school or whatever. Like somewhere you've picked up this idea that you're not complete by yourself.
Yeah, and I also feel like it kind of puts some unrealistic expectations onto your partner.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if your other half isn't being perfect all the time,
then you're feeling that like lack of wholeness.
Yeah.
And you don't like that, and that's their fault.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to start blaming it on the other person.
Yeah.
Which isn't good. So yeah, like, giving each other space and maintaining individuality, I think, is, like, how to make it work. How to have both.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because we struggled with that in the beginning. I don't think so much to the point where we couldn't spend time away from each other. Mm-hmm. Like, we were able to do what we needed to do, but throughout our marriage, like, we've spent a lot of time together, like almost every waking moment together, unless we were like at work, which there were many times where we were like working at home together.
Yeah.
So like, we definitely struggled with that aspect of having our own space. And I think that we're better at that now, and we've been intentional about that. Like, we've recognized that as an issue that we've needed to address. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. Maybe it's just not like coincidence, but maybe it's in spite of this instead of because of it. But it seems like things are looking up for us, and like things are just starting to click. And like you just released the best album you've ever made so far, like by a long shot. And the other ones were great. So like, maybe it has nothing to do with us giving each other space, but like, I'm really proud of this podcast, and I wouldn't have been able to create it if I didn't allow myself to have space.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of like ironic because you're the first guest. So I'm well aware of how silly that sounds. But it's interesting. Like there's like a clearer direction for both of us, I think now. And
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet part of that is because we've allowed each other to just fully own something instead of like always having to help each other with everything and like, you know?
Yeah, well, and I don't know about you, but like it's attractive to me that like you've got your own thing going. Like I think that's really cool.
It's just a relief to me
And
that I have my own thing going.
And I feel like other couples will experience that as well. Like when you both have your own like thing that you're like super passionate about, like it's hot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, and it's also, it doesn't have to look like a podcast host and a pop star. Like, it can look totally different.
It could be anything.
Yeah. But specifically because I think there are couples that are going to resonate more with like our path than others. But it is relevant to everybody because like discovering who you are, that needs to happen regardless of what your career choices are, or if you have any career choices. And you also need to have your own passions, even if you don't make a career out of it.
Yeah.
And you need to give each other space to do those things. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a really good point. I would say like something that's really important is questioning everything. Not even plugging the show at all. Like there's a reason why that's my motto.
Yes.
And it's developed over time. But the funny thing is like it's always been there. This concept of question everything. I've acted on that my whole life. And I've been outcasted for it, and I've gotten in trouble for it many times.
You asked too many questions.
Yeah. Yeah, there were like even these teachers with these fragile egos. Like I would ask a question, and I try to be mindful of my tone and my approach, and I also try to be kind to others. So I was never like being mean to the teacher, but like I would ask a question, like they would tell us to do something, and I would ask like why do we need to do it this way? And they would just you're disrespecting authority. It'd be
because
like a
I
threat.
said so.
Yeah, parents do the same thing because I said so. Like there's never actually a good reason. And that's because people don't know the answer. They don't know why. We're all just doing these things because that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's how it is. And gender roles is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've done most of the cooking in our marriage.
Yeah.
You've done most of the laundry in our marriage. And neither of us want to do the dishes. So,
yeah, unfortunately.
like, damn it, I wish one of us could like the dishes.
We need a third wheel for that.
Yeah, if anyone wants to be our third, specifically for doing the dishes.
Only the dishes.
Yes, then let us know. Gender roles. It's like, this is a thing that I think our generation, millennials, are like, we've been questioning this for a while now.
Yes.
Of like, okay, we understand there are biological difference, like between the male and female sex, right? Like there are clear biological differences, and we have different things that we're generally good at.
That we naturally gravitate towards.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But just like there are a lot of women that want to be homemakers and stay at home and take care of the kids, there are women like you.
Yeah.
And so it's this process of questioning everything goes beyond just your own like decisions and like career choices and things like that. It goes past your actions down to like your thoughts and your beliefs and your convictions. And that's something that
True.
That process I think was made much more difficult because of our religious background.
Yeah.
Because our religion like instilled in us these concrete beliefs that we had to jackhammer.
Yeah.
And so that made it more difficult. But even without a religious context, you have to question why you guys are operating a certain way.
Yeah.
Like if you're
And sometimes you can just come to the conclusion that like, okay, yeah, it is good this way. Like we shouldn't change anything about the way that we're doing it, but it is still worth getting to the root of like, okay, but why?
Exactly. Because exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up.
Sorry.
Rest in peace. Yeah. So exactly. Because if you don't understand why something is the way it is, you're choosing ignorance.
Yeah.
You can like do the thing and it can work for you and that's fine. But like we're human beings. We have the most complex brain on earth for a reason. Use
Yeah.
it.
Well, and curiosity has like if you look in history, Albert Einstein is coming to mind. He was a curious guy.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, look at him. Look what he did with his curiosity.
Yeah,
Like,
he like the theory of general relativity is huge in science. And like if he didn't ask enough questions, he would have never if he just assumed that things are the way they are and that's just how they are,
yeah.
he wouldn't be Albert Einstein. He'd be some weird looking like I just got shocked by lightning type guy and he would be gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel like every person that has ever made some kind of positive impact, they've had a curious mind.
yeah. And that is a perfect segue to this other component of this question, right? Do you have to choose between a relationship and a career? Can you have both? Do you have to prioritize one or the other? That is when you involve other people, namely children, which we don't have yet. We have a 75-pound furry wild animal in our house that acts like a child, but she's not a human child, right?
Yes.
And so this is important. Anyone who's made a positive impact, like take our careers away and we still have a positive impact to make, which is with our children. And I know that that's something that we've both been very mindful about. Like, again, we're about to get into year 5 of our marriage,
Yeah.
which is nuts.
That is crazy.
And we don't have kids, right?
Half
and
a decade.
Yeah, half a decade. And that's been very intentional.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, I think that we've both learned to question things even more. And not only do we question them, but we come together and we really dissect them. And because we're different people and we have different opinions, like at one point we even stood like in different spaces politically a little bit.
Yeah.
I think now we've come to a place because of this process of questioning. We were in a different place religiously. We were in a different place politically. And we were probably in a different place with things like parenting and stuff. But through this process of questioning everything, including things about ourselves so that we can know who we are,
Yeah.
we have become one in a sense. We've
One in purpose.
Yes, one in purpose, right? And like that is so important for having children, because if you are not on the same page, you're going to mess your kids up. You're going to confuse them.
Yeah.
And your relationship is going to be rocky. They're going to experience the worst of that. So how has your process of questioning everything impacted the way that you're viewing parenthood now? And as we are entering like a later phase in our 20s and as our careers are picking up, like I know that we're thinking about children at some point.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of on the radar. And like, what does it mean to question everything as a parent? What impact does that have on your children?
Well, I think that some could argue that like going about it this way will like make your kids feel uneasy or like like but I would disagree. I think that it will give our kids more peace in a way to be like, "Oh, my parents don't know everything, and that's okay. Because, so both of us grew up with kind of this idea in mind, and I think that most people grow up with this idea in mind, that like your parents know everything. They have all the answers. And then it's really fucking jarring whenever you get into adulthood, because then you realize, oh shit, none of us know what we're doing.
They didn't know what they were doing, and the thing is, they admit it later. Whenever you tell
Yeah.
your parents that you've been hurt by something, then they're like, "Well, we don't know everything. Like
Yeah.
this is our first rodeo, right?" And like I'm sure
Uh-huh.
that most people have experienced that with their parents. Like most
Yes.
kids end up saying something to their parents about how they were hurt by something, which is totally normal for your parents to make mistakes. And then they admit, oh yeah, I don't know everything. It's like, well, why was it so important to you to present yourself as somebody who like knows everything? Like, I know you're here to teach me and guide me, but like, why would you not just disclose like, hey, I'm an individual, like daddy is an individual and he's still learning things about the world. And I want to help you learn what I've learned, but we can learn some things together.
Yeah.
And there are going to be questions that you ask me that I don't know the answer to. But
let's figure it out together.
yeah, exactly. Like it was never like that.
Yeah, and also just with what I was saying about it being jarring once you enter adulthood, like if you're already from the beginning teaching your kids that like, hey, we don't know everything, but like it's okay. And like there's nothing, it's not anything to be afraid of.
Yeah.
You don't need to be scared that you don't have all the answers.
Really for us, the thing that instilled this fear of not knowing was our religion.
Yeah.
Because we were presented with, hey, this is the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
If you accept this and follow our rules, you will go to heaven. If you don't, you won't.
Yeah.
And like it's that black and white. And so I think that instills the fear of not knowing. It instills the fear of failure. It instills the fear of breaking away from your community. It locks you in. And there are other institutions in society that do the same thing, like the education system, right? It's
yeah, if you don't want to go to college, if you have like a different idea of how you want your life to go,
then
like
have fun working at McDonald's.
yeah.
Like that's what they act like.
They don't teach you how to own a business in school.
For a reason.
And they don't even really nurture like art.
No,
They don't do that at all.
You have to pay a lot of money to go to an art school.
Right.
And even
but
then,
like,
it's not stupid to go to an art school, but I do think that in some ways it's kind of silly because like you become a better artist by doing the thing.
yeah.
Right? Like you can
by
learn
making art.
Yeah, and you can learn all about like the history of it, you can learn all the technicalities and stuff, that's fine. And I'm a firm believer that you don't have to be totally born with something. Like you don't have to be a prodigy to become a good artist. You can work up to it. Like Ed Sheeran, he was not good at singing in the beginning. But look at him now, he's like up there.
Yeah, he's insane.
He tops the charts and his voice is incredible. So, but you bring up a good point about school, how there's this fear instilled where if you don't follow this path that we've laid out for you, then you're going to end up homeless. And obviously that perspective is shifting because a lot of us younger people are realizing, wait, if a degree is valuable because it's rare and everyone has one, then it's not valuable anymore. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's institutions all over that instill this fear in you. But how do you feel about parenting now? Like, how do you feel about you as a future mother and me as a future father, but also just your perspective on parenting in general? Has that changed through this process of questioning everything? And how do you think that will impact the future generations?
Yeah, I think a lot of things have changed. I'm excited to learn from our future kids. because I just know they're gonna whip something out, or we're gonna be like, how do I even deal with this?
Somebody better not take that clip out of
I
context.
Ew, oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, I know it's not gonna be easy to be a parent.
Which is one of the reasons why we've waited.
Yes.
Because we already have enough hard stuff on our plate.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly am just really excited to learn from another human, because like I feel like a lot of parents see their children as like an extension of them.
Because they don't have an identity.
Yes, and that's just not true. Like, this is a whole other human being that we're talking about.
They
like,
have your DNA. That's
like,
it.
They have your DNA. They might pick up some of your tendencies or your mannerisms or some of your interests even. But like, they are not you. They are going to experience completely different things than you. They're going to make decisions that you're not going to agree with.
And you have to be okay with that because they're not you.
Yes.
It's like you can't get mad at them for choosing something that you wouldn't do, because it's the same with the spouse, right? Like if you choose to have supreme pizza instead of barbecue chicken pizza, I can't get mad. And obviously this is not as important, but just as an example, I can't get mad at you for that because you're not me. Like, have your freaking supreme pizza, which I've actually fallen in love with, by the way.
See,
I used to hate that.
And that's, I'm glad that you brought that up though, because I think that like with our kids, like being a different person and maybe taking a different path, like they actually might open our mind up to something that we could have missed out on.
Yeah.
'Cause there's so much like in this life to experience. And so like why be closed-minded?
Yeah.
There's nothing to gain from being closed-minded, to be honest.
Just comfort.
But it's not actual comfort. Because
it's not fulfillment.
And it's not actual comfort because you still are going to have in the back of your mind, oh, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I feel like that's always the case. You can say that, like, you're really sure of something, or, like, you have a very strong testimony of something.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be something in the back of your mind.
You're worried about being wrong.
That
because there's something intrinsic, like that.
It's human.
Yeah.
To do that.
Like, you can't have, which is natural to us as humans, you can't have curiosity and a sense of like surety that you know everything at the same time. Like those can't exist completely in one being. So you're totally right. You're going to have this little thing that's like, bro, you're curious for a reason and it's because you don't know everything. So what if you're wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's so obvious that curiosity is like innate, because look at babies. What do they do all the time? They crawl on the ground. They literally put anything in their mouth.
Unfortunately.
Like, but they're doing it because they're curious. Ooh, how does this feel in my mouth? Ooh, what does it taste like?
Yep.
And sometimes they spit the thing out and they're like, ew, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
And so they learn.
And then a step up from babies, you have toddlers and like, younger kids. And what do they do really well? They question everything.
They ask a million questions.
Yes, and it makes adults uncomfortable because they have trained themselves out of that.
Yeah.
Do children learn really quickly because that's just what happens when you're a kid and then your brain stops developing at 24? Or do kids learn really quick because they ask so many questions and you can continue that rate of knowledge gathering for the rest of your life if you just don't train yourself out of asking questions like everybody does?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to teach our kids is question everything. If I tell you to do something and you think it's stupid, ask me why.
Yeah.
That'll give me an opportunity, because we've questioned each other. We've questioned the tendencies that we have and the perspectives that we have. We've done that together, but we're only two people. What happens when we have two kids? Two different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden we're like opened up to this new world of, oh, like they see this totally different than we do. And you know what? That's a good question. Why do you need to go to bed at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, I kind of was thinking about a scenario the other day of like in the future when we have like a teenager
Yeah.
and they like get in trouble for something, and so we're like giving them a punishment or like disciplining them for something, and they pull the line, that's not fair. And I was thinking of this scenario and I was like, okay, how am I gonna respond to that?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, okay, what would be fair? Because then I feel like that teaches them, like, they're not going to get out of a punishment.
Because
Like,
life has the whole reason for disciplining your child is to teach them not that you're the boss,
Yeah.
but to teach them that life has natural consequences.
Yes.
That's the thing a lot of parents miss. They discipline their child because the child did something they didn't want them to do, and that upset them, and it upsets their reign of authority. But in reality, you do that. And this is something I remember my dad saying to me, which I'm very grateful for as a kid, is he said that like life has consequences. Like there are things that naturally happen as a result of your actions. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be the objective when you discipline your child.
Yeah, so I feel like talking with him and being like, okay, well, what do you think would be fair?
Yeah.
And I feel like it gets them to think. And then maybe they'll be like, okay, you know what? Like, you're right. Like, the original punishment, like, I probably, like, should just take the L.
Yeah.
But I think that just in asking him that question, well, what would be fair? It gets them to really think about.
And it's also the illusion of choice. It's a sales tactic. It's like, so would you rather buy my high ticket sales item or my low ticket sales item? It's like, okay,
Oh my gosh.
you don't want the punishment I gave you. Well, you're still going to get one, but which one do you want? Like, what do you think would be fair?
Yeah.
So that's a funny, like, because they're still kids and they still need to learn. But
Yeah. So I was just that's like a random scenario that I thought about. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to learn from them. And also, I mean, we're going to learn new things about ourselves too.
Yeah.
Throughout that process.
Like when you say what would be fair, that's an opportunity for you to learn as well.
Yeah.
Because you get to go, hey, like you get to second guess your punishment and be like, okay, is that actually...
Am I being too harsh or am I not being hard enough?
Is it even relevant? Like, does this disciplinary action even align with like the action that the child took? Like,
yeah. It's true.
I'm thinking about the original question, which was, do you have to choose between having a relationship and having a career?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have to prioritize one or the other? I know from my perspective, there have been times in our relationship where we notice our career is like stagnating or suffering in a little bit. And so we need to kind of go career mode for a short burst of time.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of work to do. And that's a conscious decision that we make where we know, hey, like we're not going to be able to go on a date every week. Like we won't be able to spend as much time together as husband and wife or even as boyfriend and girlfriend or best friends. Like we're going to be business partners for the next 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And that's hard.
Yeah.
But then there are times where you notice the relationship is suffering and it's like, okay, this totally matters.
Yeah.
And we can take a step back really quick. Let's really nurture our relationship. There's something that we need to address. We need to spend more time together. Sometimes there's not a problem. You just simply need to date each other and like get interested again.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm thinking about all that. Why do you think it's important for people like us to be together? Do you think it's important? Like, Because this is a good question, and I know that there's a lot of people in society now who are giving up on love.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. Like, you have this loneliness epidemic. People are sucked into their phones all day, getting this fake version of connection.
Yeah.
And you have all these dating apps and all of these things that are superficial, right? And like, I'm not a doomer about it. I think that there's a lot of hope. Mm-hmm. And I think the hope lies in relationships like ours in a way, because it shows that you can be your own person and you can be fulfilled like with your passions, and you can still have like true love and companionship.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, what's the greater impact if we do have a society where people don't give up on love and they don't give up on relationships, and they take this approach of questioning everything and learning to heal from past traumas and being a complete individual and all of these things? Like, what does the future look like to you if we go that direction?
Well, we're humans, not robots.
Yeah.
And especially with all this AI stuff, like, people are kind of scared that AI is going to take over or whatever. I don't think it is. But I can see why people think that.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, we're not robots. We need love. That's kind of like every good thing in life is born from love, I feel like. And so it's really helpful to have a support system. And for some people, like, that could just be their family. That could just be their friends. It could be a friend, a family member. But I do think that there is a deeper kind of love with romantic love, obviously. And we all yearn for that. Like, we all want that deep down. I think even people that say that they, like, I don't need a man, or like, I don't, like, they do. Like, they want that. And they deserve it as well. And so, I don't know. I just think it's really nice to have someone to come home to.
What impact would that have on the world if more people had a healthy relationship where they were both individual people and they were living in alignment with their passions, and they also had a healthy relationship together and maybe a healthy family? Like, what?
It would honestly fix everything.
Think so?
Like, not even joking. Like, you look at every issue that we have in society, and it always stems from a lack of love, whether that's self-love or like that person was neglected when they were younger.
Yeah.
Like, any bad thing that someone does, it's always because they don't love themselves enough, or no one has loved them in their life. And so, like, it really would fix everything. And so that's why I don't think people should give up on it, even though it seems hopeless sometimes. Like, it really is possible.
It's hard. Like,
yeah,
having a healthy relationship is hard. Most people, that's like their thing, right? They work like a normal job, and then the other person stays home, and like, they're not building anything external. And like, most people don't have a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and it's only like not healthy yet because we don't normally start out healthy.
Yeah.
Like, we carry baggage into relationships. We don't, like, as much as everyone wishes that they could be the best version of themselves for someone else, like, it's normally not the case. Like, you kind of bring a lot of BS with you.
And you're normally not even the best version of yourself for yourself.
Right.
Like, if you can't even do that for yourself, you can't do it for somebody else.
Yeah, so, like, the part about, like, a healthy relationship being hard, it isn't hard because it's healthy, it's hard because you're having to undo and unlearn all of these things about yourself, like about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's an ego thing. Like, it's really humbling to be in a healthy relationship because you have to face a lot of things about yourself where you're like, oh wow, that thing that I do is actually really bad. And
Yeah. It's not
like,
just who I am. Like, there's no excuse. It's just wrong.
yeah, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm being selfish. I need to stop doing that. That's really hard to do, and a lot of people don't want to admit that. And
Yeah.
that's why healthy relationships are hard, because you're having to like you're having to actually work hard and like fix things about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you can no longer blame it on the other person, because that's unhealthy.
Yeah. Your relationship, like, will not be fulfilling at all if there's no accountability.
Yep.
And I think that's, I want to emphasize as this episode ends, I want to emphasize, struggle bus. I want to emphasize what it's taken for us to come to a place where we feel like we're healthy. Because I think there was always that potential, and there were always moments of that. And we have chosen to love each other, right? Like, you have to remember that love is a choice.
Yes.
It's not like a feeling. It's also not just an action, like giving someone a gift like that. Like, love is deeper than that.
I feel like it is a feeling, but in addition, it's also a choice.
It's like, if you choose to fall out of love with somebody.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you have to make that choice, and it might not be conscious, but it's still a choice. So yeah, you're right. You have to choose somebody. And so yeah, I really feel like we're finally coming to this place after all of this work and all of the stuff that we've had to dive into, and the religion that we've had to deconstruct, and all of these tendencies that we carried with us into our relationship. Like, it's taken a long time to feel like genuine fulfillment and security, and also like healthy, and so I think it'd be cool to bounce off of each other just for the last like minute or so, like things that are good to keep in mind, like things that we've learned that might help other people that are either going through similar things, or their dynamic is similar, or they have similar goals, things to pay attention to. And so for me, that would be asking really hard questions, like question everything. And I know that that's been said a lot, but like, I literally mean everything. The thoughts that go through your head, the habits that you have to question, and your beliefs.
Routines.
If you want, yeah, exactly. If you want a healthy relationship, you have to question every aspect of it. And you don't have to do that forever about everything in your relationship, because you can come to a conclusion to have some peace of mind. But that's only going to be real peace of mind if you've actually done the work. So that's my thing. What would you say?
I think something that I've been working on in a relationship is knowing when to respond as your spouse or as your business partner. Because it's really easy to get caught up in like all of the work that we're doing and see each other as business partners. And
My turn.
and forget to like be boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
and I've noticed that too. Like, just to compliment you, like you said that you're working on that, and I've noticed that, and I feel even more safe now, because as a man, like, I go out in this world that kind of, we all have our own struggles, and it's nice to come home and there to be like something like soft and warm, if that makes sense. And that is like your essence and like your attitude towards me. Like I don't have to worry about putting up my guard, putting up a front. Like I can come home and know that out of the other places that I could be, like I'm safe here. And I'm not hated here, you know?
Yeah, I like, it's kind of like the whole thing of when someone is venting to you and then you give like unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Like most of the time that person wasn't looking for advice. They were just wanting you to listen to them. And so it's kind of along the same lines of like, okay, do you want me to give you advice or do you want me to listen? And so with what I was talking about, like, okay, do I need to respond as your spouse or as your business partner?
Yeah. And most of the time.
And most of the time, you want me to respond as your spouse.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in the past, I would respond as your business partner. And that wasn't helpful to you. That's not what you were needing. And yeah, I feel like the more that I've really tried to like pay attention to that and keep that in mind, our relationship is just better because I'm listening to what you need. So
yeah, that is really important. And just to kind of double down on what I said, like I've noticed that as I've questioned my thought processes and my even like little actions that I take, even emotions, there's some times where I'll feel an emotion come up. And instead of just getting stuck in feeling that way, I go, whoa, why am I feeling this way right now?
yeah.
Like, is it because you made me feel that way? Or is it because there's something else going on? Like, is there something that I have unresolved within myself that's causing me to put this blame on you? And so I've noticed that I've just been generally happier in our relationship as I've learned to question things even more.
Yeah, and that's I have also noticed that about you, and I'm really thankful for that because that has taken weight off of me at times where like I don't feel like it's my fault when you feel a certain way, like, and it's been really cool to see you like notice when an emotion is coming up and acknowledge it and be like, okay, I'm gonna like regulate this. Like I need to like be alone for a little bit and I'm gonna take care of this and then like I'll be back.
BRB. Girl. Okay. That's great.
So yeah.
This has been really good. Yeah. It's crazy that we can be together so much and talk together so much about stuff. But then when we sit down and put on some pretty lights and have some honey, lemon, ginger, turmeric water. Turmeric. All of a sudden, we unlock like new layers to our relationship. So
yeah, it's cool.
It was a pleasure having you on. I will definitely have you back one of these days. And cool. If people want to listen to your music, because for those that don't know, you are a pop artist, alternative pop. Where do they go?
You can find me on all streaming platforms. My name is Cole, Cole.
All caps?
All caps. My social media handles are @songsbycole.
Easy.
So.
And then for me, if you want to follow along with the podcast and be up to date with what I'm doing, then you can find me at the NOLAN.VOID on Instagram or NOLAN.VOID on YouTube. This podcast is filmed and it's much cooler when you watch it.
Yeah.
So go ahead and watch it. For tools and coaching, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Cole.
Of course.
And we'll see you next time.